What happens with tax returns in bankruptcy? The question was, what happens with my tax return? I'm assuming she's talking about bankruptcy in this question. This is a young lady from Cape Coral. Good question. If you're not filing bankruptcy, folks, and you're going to get a tax refund, good for you. I hope you use it to pay down your debt, put it away for savings in case an emergency happens. So first and foremost, for 2012, I want everybody to create an emergency fund that you can go to only for emergencies. You know, going out on a shopping trip is not an emergency. Or, you know, I have to fly to, I have to go to Disney World this weekend, go into the emergency fund. Not really an emergency. There are, like I said, 2012 is going to be a tough year for everybody. If you can put away some money, and it's whatever makes you feel comfortable for an emergency fund. For some people, it may be a couple $100. For others, you know, with kids, it may be a couple $1,000s. Experts say put away 6 months worth of savings or 6 months worth of expenses so that if an emergency does hit, like you lose a job, you have that availability to 6 months, you don't have to worry. It's kind of ridiculous in today's society. Plus, I mean, it's good advice, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of ridiculous from my opinion because who has 6 months worth of savings if your expenses are $2,000 a month, which is about average for a small family in Southwest Florida, maybe even a little ridiculous, maybe it's more like $3,000 a month. That would be $18,000 you have to have in savings. But where are you going to put that? In a money market? In a savings account where they're drawing what, 0.02% interest? That's not money working for you, that's money working against you. So you got to be careful about that. What makes you feel comfortable? If it's a couple $1,000s, if you know you're a hustler and you know you can get out there and find work, if you get let go or if something happens, you know you can provide for your family, put together a little bit each month. You know, put together aside a little each month for that emergency fund. But also, folks, we've got to get ready because with a tax return, that's an added bonus for a lot of people. They may use it to pay their property taxes, or they may use it and say, hey, look, I've been putting off necessary car repairs, necessary house repairs. I need that money. Well, folks, if you can get that done and save as much of it as possible, fantastic. That emergency fund may come into use somewhere down the line, or you may need it when gas prices go up or whatever. But I want you to put that away. Now let's talk about bankruptcy. If you're in bankruptcy and you're filed a Chapter 7, if you're going to get a tax refund, that tax refund is going to be part of your bankruptcy estate because whatever you've earned, let's say for the tax refund for 2011 is going to be $1,200, which means you earned about $100 a month. So we prorate that tax refund by $100 a month. Now, if you filed bankruptcy on September 30th, that means that 10 months worth of that, meaning January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, 9 months, excuse me, of that has been earned by you. October, November, and December have not been earned. And therefore, if you filed on September 30th, 2011, that means that 9/12 of your tax return is property of the bankruptcy estate. So that means $900 of the $1,200 could be subject to the creditors, or maybe to the bankruptcy court, so that the trustee can take it and give that money to your creditors in a Chapter 7. Unless you have an exemption, which you can apply to. An exemption is basically that protection that you can put on that $900. If you have available exemptions to put on that $900, then by all means, claim the exemption. Let's talk about Chapter 13 and taxes. This is two different ways that this works. In Chapter 13, if you have a tax refund coming, the question is whether or not you built it into your original budget. In other words, when you filed the bankruptcy, did you put down 1/12 of the tax return as income? Use the same example. You're going to get a $1,200 tax refund. I like to put that $100 a month in the budget, showing that that money is needed for necessary medical, whatever expenses, living expenses, in your Chapter 13 plan. So that this way, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, if you get a $1,200 tax refund, it's already been spread out over the year. If you haven't done that, you haven't put it in your budget because this was a new tax refund. You never got a tax refund before, but now you're getting a windfall, $1,200 for something. Well, then that money is property of the bankruptcy estate, and it's going to have to be used to pay your creditors unless you have some need for the money. Let's say, for example, you have a repair bill for your house. Your roof needs to be repaired, and it's going to cost $1,500. We would ask the court to allow you to keep that tax refund to use it for the maintenance of your home. But I would want to see at least 1 or 2 estimates and that the work was going to be performed. and that you were going to use that money for the $1,200, or that you already did use that money to pay that creditor. I mean, it's really hard. You got to remember, bankruptcy judges have an obligation to look at both sides of the equation. Sure, you want to keep the money, but yeah, the creditors are entitled to as much as they can get under the bankruptcy code. That's the law. I think it's real hard for a judge to sit there and say, yeah, $1,200 came into the estate, the debtor has a leaky roof, which may cause more problems down the line. Is it better to let the debtor keep the money and fix the roof? Or is it better to take that money and give it to the creditors, knowing that the debtor may be leaving that house sometime soon, and really putting the burden on the homeowner or the mortgage holder, who's going to have to take that house back over and fix the roof eventually? It's a 6 of one, half dozen the other. But the bankruptcy court's a court of reality, folks, and they're going to look at your circumstances as they arise. So yeah, the emergency fund is a big issue. If you have an emergency fund and you can put that tax return into it, put the tax return into the emergency fund, save your money. Again, you know as well as I do, life happens. And that when people put money away for a rainy day fund, you know it's going to rain one day. It always does. So if you have that emergency fund, you don't have to worry about going to the credit cards or somewhere else looking for that fund if you have the emergency fund. So I just say, folks, be careful. Put the emergency fund in some type of interest-bearing account where you can make a little bit of return on your investment. Maybe a money market, it's not that much, but something where you could have that money set aside, okay?